Welcome, curious minds. We are the Standing in the Gaps news deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something that's, well, it's all over the headlines, these escalating tensions around Iran's nuclear program. You've probably seen bits and pieces, right? But we're going to take a stack of recent reports and really unpack what seems to be happening, the military stuff, the diplomacy game, what's really at stake. And hey, while you're listening, if you like what we do, please hit that like button, subscribe, maybe ask a question in the comments. It really helps us out.
That's exactly right. Our mission here is just to lay out the facts as the sources present them, give you a clear, hopefully unbiased picture of what's a really critical moment. We'll guide you through the details.
Okay, let's get into it then. These reports, they outline some pretty significant military moves, but also diplomatic talk. The signs of heightened readiness are pretty striking. Let's start with the military chessboard, maybe. What exactly are the U.S. and its allies doing, according to these sources we've looked at?
What's really fascinating, I think, is the sheer scale of the reported U.S. buildup. We've seen reports about the Doomsday plane, that $500 million aircraft.
The one designed to survive a nuclear blast.
That's the one. Keeps top officials safe. It apparently made an unexpected flight right into D.C., Joint Base Andrews, late at night.
Wow. That definitely sends a message, doesn't it?
It certainly suggests the threat level is considered, extremely high.
Okay, so that's a big signal. What else? Naval power. Air power.
Yeah, on the naval side, the reports mention 2 U.S. destroyers, the USS Sullivan's and another one out in the Mediterranean. They've apparently been active shooting down Iranian missiles, according to some sources.
Okay, in the Med, what about closer to Iran?
Right, further south, there's a carrier strike group, the USS Carl Vinson. It's reported to be in the Arabian Sea, pretty close to the Iranian coast. Got 4 warships with it. And there's also word the supercarrier USS Gerald Ford is heading that way, too. Soon.
Another carrier. That's a huge concentration of naval force right there.
It is. A significant projection of power.
And in the air.
Yeah.
What are the reports saying about aircraft?
Air power-wise, dozens of F-16s have reportedly been moved into position, and they're bringing in the advanced fighters too, F-22s, F-35s.
The stealth fighters.
Exactly. And what's also mentioned quite a bit is the tactical movement of B-2 stealth bombers.
Ah, the B-2s. Those would be for
the bunker busters, potentially, if they needed to hit hardened underground targets. And interestingly, American bombers are apparently lining up at Diego Garcia.
Diego Garcia.
Yeah.
Well, there. What's the significance of that base?
Well, Diego Garcia is pretty remote, right?
Yeah.
In the Indian Ocean. It gives them a secure place to operate from, well outside the range of most Iranian missiles, but still close enough for long-range missions. It's a key strategic spot.
Makes sense. Okay, so that's the U.S. side. But Israel is a huge player here too, right? Their actions get a lot of attention in these reports.
Oh, absolutely. The sources paint a picture of Israel being extremely active, very direct. Reports suggest they basically control the skies over Iran right now, hitting military targets, nuclear facilities, apparently around the clock.
Constantly.
That's what the sources indicate. And they've also reportedly taken out nuclear scientists, top military figures. One report specifically mentioned Israel destroying a reactor that was making plutonium.
That's incredibly aggressive. A sustained campaign, it sounds like.
It does. And there's another detail, a really concerning one. An Iranian missile apparently hit an Israeli hospital. Israel is calling it a war crime.
A hospital. Wow.
Yeah. And in response, Israel's defense minister reportedly said the Ayatollah can no longer continue to exist. Very strong words.
Definitely. And how are Iran's attacks described?
The report suggests they're weakening, becoming more disorganized. Israel seems to be successfully hunting down their missile launchers. There are even hints Iran might be running low on missiles, maybe batteries too.
So with all this military action happening, this intense pressure, the big question is the nuclear program itself. How close are they? What do the sources say about that tipping point?
Right, that's the core issue. And there's this striking analogy reportedly from the CIA director. He apparently described Iran's programs being at the goal line.
At the goal line, like football.
Exactly, like a team marches 99 yards, gets to the 1-yard line, but maybe doesn't intend to score immediately. It's a bit of a confusing analogy, perhaps.
So capable, but maybe not crossing the threshold just yet. Is that the idea?
That seems to be the implication in that specific quote. But the sources strongly emphasize that inspectors have seen the program, the Israelis see it. There's apparently no doubt the program is alive and active. The only real uncertainty mentioned is just how long it might take them to actually nuke up, as one source puts it.
That phrase, nuke up, really drives it home. So connecting that to the bigger picture, what are the wider concerns here? Why is this so critical?
Well, the concerns outlined are massive. Iran is often described in these sources, as the world's leading sponsor of terror.
That's a heavy label.
It is. And the argument presented is that with a nuclear weapon, they could potentially hold the world hostage, especially since they control those vital shipping lanes. About a third of the world's oil goes through there.
Right, the Strait of Hormuz.
Exactly. The sources also frame this in a long historical context, mentioning the conflict with the U.S. in '79, the hostage crisis, and allegations that Iran has threatened the U.S. Pretty regularly and supports terrorism globally. The stark warning that comes through is, we cannot sleepwalk into a nuclear-armed Iran. The potential consequences are described as catastrophic, even potentially modern-day Holocaust.
Okay, so the stakes are incredibly high. Given that perceived closeness to a weapon and the potential fallout, what are the options? Is it just military now, or is diplomacy still genuinely on the table?
It seems like there are two tracks being presented in the sources, kind of a dual narrative. On one side, you have President Trump's reported stance, unequivocally clear that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He's also described, though, as hating war, preferring peace, doing everything he can to avoid it, even reportedly giving them 60 days previously.
So a firm line, but maybe still preferring not to use force if possible?
That seems to be the portrayal. And we also hear Iran's foreign ministers apparently traveling to Switzerland for talks with Europeans. So maybe a diplomatic channel is still open?
Interesting. Is there any timeline mentioned for these potential talks?
Yeah, there's a quote attributed to the president indicating a substantial chance of negotiations within the next 2 weeks. But it's framed kind of ambiguously. Could be a final olive branch, or potentially, as some speculate, a fake move before military action. There's even speculation linking the 2-week timeline to maybe early July, maybe hinting at, fireworks.
Okay, a very tight time frame. But if talks do happen, what would Iran need to agree to? What are the conditions mentioned?
The conditions laid out in the sources sound incredibly tough, extremely aggressive. Things like unconditional surrender, no weapons development moving forward, immediate access and dismantlement of their entire nuclear program, including that buried Fordo site.
The whole thing? Wow.
Yeah. And anywhere, any place, anytime inspections led by an American team. Plus, giving up long-range missiles that could hit U.S. installations.
That sounds like complete capitulation.
Pretty much. The reports suggest Iran has zero leverage right now in any negotiation.
Zero leverage is quite a statement. Do the sources offer any hint of what Iran might think its leverage is? Even if it's just disruption? Or is the consensus really that they have nothing to bargain with?
That's a good point. While the emphasis is on their weak position, you could infer that their leverage might be their potential to cause regional chaos through proxies, or maybe just the threat of continuing the nuclear program itself as a bargaining chip. But the overwhelming sentiment coming from these reports is that trust is completely gone. The world knows that the Iranians cannot be trusted, is a phrase that appears. Makes any real deal incredibly difficult.
Right, okay, so if diplomacy doesn't work out, or if it's not genuine, what about the military options? You mentioned bunker busters.
Yes, if talks fail, the primary military option detailed is using those bunker busters against key nuclear sites, especially Fordo.
Because it's buried so deep?
Exactly. Built into a mountain, heavily reinforced. You'd likely need something like the B-2 stealth bombers to deliver those munitions effectively, but the sources stress it wouldn't just be that. It would likely require a much larger, massive air campaign alongside it.
Why? To prevent retaliation?
Precisely. To try and knock out Iran's ballistic missile stockpiles and any other way they could strike back effectively.
It sounds like a huge undertaking. What about the more extreme options? Tactical nukes were mentioned in the sources we reviewed.
Yeah, that's a really sensitive point. One report suggested President Trump was getting cold feet about using tactical nukes, but the White House apparently pushed back hard on that, denying it, saying everything is on the table, even tactical nukes.
Everything is on the table. That's sobering.
It really is.
Yeah.
Even though tactical nukes are notionally smaller or for battlefield use, just mentioning them raises the stakes immensely. Huge risk of escalation.
Understood. Okay, so air campaigns, potential bunker busters, even the mention of tactical nukes. What about ground troops? Is an invasion being considered?
No, the sources are very clear on this point. The White House is reportedly not considering boots on the ground.
Why not?
Iran's geography. It's described as making a land invasion almost impossible. A military nightmare. Think about it. It's huge, 3 times the size of Texas,
Mm.
surrounded by mountains.
Natural defenses.
Exactly. Rocky walls, almost no passes on the west. Mountains to the north, rugged terrain to the east near Afghanistan and Pakistan. And in the middle, 2 massive, deadly deserts. Extreme heat, salt flats, sand that can apparently just swallow tanks.
So very different from somewhere like Iraq.
Very different, according to these analyses. They suggest you wouldn't see floods of foreign fighters coming in to target Americans because, well, there wouldn't be Americans on the ground to target, and getting into the country overland would be incredibly difficult anyway.
Okay, that paints a stark picture of the military challenges. It sounds like Iran is in a really tight spot, external pressure, military limitations, maybe internal issues too. What do the sources say about the state of the regime itself, the Ayatollah?
They portray a regime that seems pretty isolated right now. The Ayatollah Khamenei, he's 86, ruled for decades, described as being all alone, maybe even hiding in a bunker.
Alone, meaning his allies aren't stepping up.
That seems to be the implication. Reports say Hezbollah hasn't fired missiles, Shiite militias in Iraq haven't really targeted U.S. bases, the Houthis in Yemen have been quiet. It suggests either a loss of influence or maybe a strategic choice by those groups to stay out of this specific escalation. Plus, you have those reports of scientists and generals being assassinated inside Iran. That points to internal vulnerabilities, perhaps successful covert actions.
So isolation externally, maybe vulnerabilities internally. What about the general situation inside Iran? The economy? The people?
Well, the economy is consistently depicted as a disaster, likely due to sanctions, mismanagement, and the Ayatollah is described as having mistreated his people for years, creating a lot of discontent.
Which could lead to...
Speculation in the sources is that things could get unstable, the streets will start to teeter. A coup is even mentioned as a likely possibility. The Revolutionary Guard is powerful, they could be a factor. There's even talk that Israel might get a green light to take him out.
Wow. And is there a clear successor if something happens to the Ayatollah?
That's another layer of uncertainty. Mentioned that the lack of a clear, agreed-upon successor adds to the potential instability.
Okay, so wrapping this all together, for you, our listener, what's the big takeaway here? What are the risks? Acting versus not acting?
It really is presented as a high-wire act, a delicate balance. The sources highlight the risk of acting, of being too ambitious, maybe not fully grasping the realities on the ground, unintended consequences. But then there's the risk of not acting, of doing nothing. That could lead to, according to these reports, sleeper cells, cyber attacks, terror attacks, that slippery slope towards the nuclear Iran we discussed.
A real catch-22?
Kind of. The reports suggest President Trump is trying to deliberately, carefully calibrate all this. They mention his incredible instincts, his peace-through-strength approach, pointing to past actions like taking down ISIS, Soleimani, using the MOAB in Afghanistan. The idea presented is that he's willing to act decisively, but wants to avoid getting the U.S. stuck in another long, protracted war.
And what's the ultimate goal described in these sources if everything went digamos according to the plan outlined?
The endgame discussed is quite ambitious. An unarmed Iran that is not an archenemy of the United States. A transformed Iran, maybe even becoming cooperative. This could, theoretically, lead to more regional unity under U.S. influence and give the U.S. major leverage over the Chinese, who rely heavily on Middle Eastern oil.
That's a very ambitious long-term vision.
Extremely ambitious. And achieving it faces enormous hurdles, obviously. Political, cultural, historical. It's incredibly complex.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a really intense deep dive, a situation with just so many moving parts, huge potential consequences, not just regionally, but for the whole world.
It certainly is. And it really brings up a crucial question for all of us, doesn't it? In a world flooded with information, where things change so fast and intentions are always being debated, what's our responsibility as citizens trying to stay informed? How do we best sort through the noise to understand the real stakes for ourselves and, well, for everyone?
That's a great question to leave people with. Thanks so much for diving deep with us today. If you found this valuable, again, please do like, subscribe, leave a comment. We love hearing from you. And just a quick mention, we are running a GoFundMe campaign. We're trying to upgrade our equipment, webcams, better mics, editing gear to improve production and reach more people. If you're able to support us, the link is in the description below. Every little bit helps. Until next time, keep digging for those nuggets of knowledge.